In today's video, I want to provide some very specific obstacles or steps backwards, and luckily those were followed by some breakthroughs and some movement in a healthier direction. So far in this series, I've focused on my mother and her relationship to her stuff, and we've focused on that. But there's another element at play. I mentioned in the last video that my mother has invited my disabled veteran brother to live with her. My brother's disability is physical in nature and also mental in nature. So he has two different disabilities, a physical one as well as a mental one. For confidentiality reasons, I won't mention any specifics, but I will mention that my brother has been managing symptoms of his mental disability with his doctor, and they have chosen to use medication to manage those symptoms. And those medications that he's been using have some debilitating side effects. And about 2 months ago, my brother and his doctor decided to try to reduce the medication by 50% in order to try to get rid of some of these debilitating side effects because they were worsening with time. And not unexpectedly, some of the symptoms now are resurfacing. And I very much support my brother in whatever decision he makes with his doctor. I don't necessarily think medication is always the answer. To me, if these symptoms come back, if he figures out how to manage these symptoms well without the medication, I very much support him in that endeavor. At the same time, I think there are some things we can do to try to help him manage those symptoms and put things in place that would help him set him up for the best possible success managing those symptoms on his own without the medication. Or his doctor and he might decide to re-increase the medications. But one of the things is this affects my mother, and it affects my interactions with my mother, and it certainly affects my interactions with my brother. During my very first visit, I stayed overnight, and I was there almost 2 full days. My main goal was just to enjoy myself. One of the things I did while I was there was I gardened with my brother, and this was wonderful. It was a chance for us to just be hanging out outside, and I was connecting with him. And when we came in, I thanked him for his help with the gardening, and I said, "Hey, Brent, I'm here to help Mom with some stuff, but is there anything I can help you with?" And he said, "Yeah, my doctor wants me to see a therapist." And I am very supportive of this, not just for my brother, but for anyone. I think therapists help you identify what is it that you want, and a good therapist can help you see the patterns you might have that might be preventing you from getting what you want. And they also have a whole toolbox of ways that they can change your patterns and put in healthier patterns and help you have a healthier lifestyle. So, not unique to my brother, I was very excited about the idea of therapy. And so he had identified that in the past when he tried to call, he was not getting anywhere. So I said, okay, well, let's call together. And we spent the next 40 minutes on speakerphone getting all the answers we needed: his coverage, providers, what numbers to call, specialties. So we had all the information. I was very excited after this 40-minute call. And it was the last thing I was doing before I returned to Boise. And about 25 minutes into this call, something clicked with my brother, and he decided that somehow that call was damaging to him in some way. And I didn't quite understand at the time. I was just like, "Brent, my intent was to help you." And I understand, because after the phone call was over, instead of him being happy about it, he was really upset. And I had to leave, so I didn't think too much of it, because I was like, I don't really understand how this was damaging, and I had to leave. And unfortunately, for the next 5 days, according to my mom, he got increasingly poisonous about this phone call. And not just the phone call, but he was saying really negative things about me. And, "Oh, Sam does this, and Sam does that, and Sam does this." And it was all negative. Like my interacting with him was causing his life to be worse. Things along that theme. And my mom was kind of buying into some of these false narratives. The challenge here is these false narratives, everything feeds into them. So I'll just give you a quick example. Let's say you go to a party and you decide in your head, before you walk in, everybody hates me. That's a false narrative. You've created a false narrative. But when you walk into that party, you're more likely to see evidence that supports that false narrative. So anytime someone stops talking to you to go get more food or to go to the bathroom, you think, yeah, that's proof that they hate me. And so things you're seeing feed into this false narrative. You could create a false narrative that's the other direction. You could decide, oh, everybody loves me and wants to support me at this party, which is probably not true because you probably don't even know everybody at the party. But that false narrative, you would probably also see evidence that supported that. So every time someone smiles at you, you're like, ha, I knew it, they all love me. And with my mom, when she creates false narratives, it's always worse than reality. And to me, that is a sign of some sickness and some dis-ease, as it's called, because you're always creating something that's worse than reality, and you're always creating a place you don't want to live in. And yet you're seeing evidence to support this. So I'm going to give you some specific examples. After my visit, my mom listened to my brother rant for 5 days, and so she sort of joined his bandwagon. And so she texts me, "He knows he is no match for you as a debater. You are the professional. His paranoia, combined with your focused attack, is giving him the yayas, and me too." So now she's created this false narrative that I'm attacking. And nothing I did in my 2 days over there could possibly be construed as an attack. The phone call at the end was based on a request he made of me when I offered to help. He said, yeah, I'd like help with a therapy appointment. And so I helped him with that. So there's certainly no attack there. But she continues on this thread. She writes a little bit later, "And he worked all day with you, showing you how very hardworking and healthy he was. And then, when he was truly exhausted, you started in on him, a new task. Where was the camaraderie and a job well done?" So she talks about me starting in and attacking him. And these narratives, they're false and they're much worse than reality. And the worst part is now when I try to do stuff that helps or supports that making a healthier living environment, it's going to fit these false narratives. So let me just give you one more. "I know you don't have a lot of time." She's referring to, I don't have much time in Idaho. I'm going to be leaving Idaho soon. And I've let her know, hey, I only have a small window to help in any way I can over there. "But when you are with us, you just see us as a problem to be solved. Sorry you can't enjoy hanging out. Brent really spent weeks looking forward to seeing you. He so very badly wants to be your strong big brother, and you are insensitive to that, just steamrolling onto the next item on your damned precious agenda." So my mom's created this false narrative that I see them as a problem to be solved. And I know that's false because I don't see humans as problems, and I don't think you can solve humans. Even if somehow I did think humans were problems, you can't really solve them. You can support someone in creating a life that they want to have, but you can't solve a person. Like if someone's a smoker, you can't get them to stop smoking. If they want to stop smoking, you might be able to support them in that. But if they don't want to quit smoking, you can't come in and change that. That's them. They have to do that. And if they want to quit, it really is them who quits. Like you can't solve that even if they want you to solve it. They have to solve it themselves. You might be able to support them. But just back to this false narrative. So now everything I do or say is going to fit into this false narrative that anything where I try to help in some way, it's like, oh, Sam, you just see us as a problem. You're trying to solve us. Or, oh, you're just steamrolling us. You're moving on to your next agenda item. And, my agenda was to enjoy myself, which I did. And next on the agenda item was to support in some way of making a healthy environment. And so those are the 2 steps back. One, that my brother is having symptoms related to his mental disability that are affecting the livelihoods of everyone he's around over there, including me. And the other step back is my mom was buying into his toxic false agendas. And the steps forward were I prepared a letter. My mom, I think, responds. She interacts well with the written word. She reads books, and I think written word she connects with in some way better than verbal or spoken word. So I wrote a letter just explaining how these false narratives were quite damaging, because she's going to see everything that supports them. Everything's going to be evidence that she's a problem to be solved, or that I have a precious agenda and I'm just steamrolling them. So anytime I try to do something, it'll fit that narrative. But that narrative is not correct. It's a false narrative, and it's worse than reality. It's not better than reality. The step forward is that she came to these conclusions on her own. So she saw the 5 days of my brother kind of going in a dark direction about all this, and there was a point where she sort of got fed up by it and started to realize, wait, how is this creating a better life? And then I also shared my letter with her, and so she's totally on board with this idea that she had created these false narratives, and that everything I was doing was feeding into these false narratives, even though they were false. And another step forward is my mother is signing up for therapy, which again I think is a great idea for everyone, and my mom's no exception. So I'm very excited for that step forward. So that was between the first visit, and then I just randomly showed up maybe 10 days after the first visit. I randomly showed up for a second visit, and my mom was so grateful. She said, hey, I think it's a sign from God that you showed up. I think God, brought you here, because she was really at the end of her tether. After being around my brother with his symptoms for 10 days in a row, she was just really needing a break and wanting out. And so when I showed up, it gave her a chance to sort of disengage. And I had a great visit with my brother. Things went really well there. And I'm hopeful that he can manage his symptoms. So I'll continue sort of engaging with that, and I'll keep that kind of as an aside. And then with my mom, I'm very excited. Her therapy appointment isn't until, I think, mid-September sometime, so it's still a ways off. But to me, I think that's a great step for her. So I just wanted to share the progress, the steps backwards in these things, and the challenges, so that if you're trying to work with someone with hoarding disorder, just know that, hey, these setbacks, they're probably going to happen. If you watch the show Hoarders at all, you'll see that a lot of the progress comes during sort of emotional breakdowns and things that look like they might be a setback. But actually those events, those large emotional releases, are often cathartic in a way that allows a person to move forward with something. And so these setbacks, far from seeing them as oh, these are bad, I'm really wanting to support the idea that, hey, these are just part of it, and setbacks are going to be a part of it, or things that look like setbacks are going to be a part of it, and maybe they're not even setbacks. Maybe they're just part of the journey to getting to a healthier place. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you want to continue this journey with me, you can hit the subscribe button, and any comments would be really helpful, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.